Hello, everyone. We're going to continue with the unit expressions, equations, and inequalities, starting with writing expressions word problems. Then we're going to talk about two-step equations, and lastly, two-step equations with decimals and fractions. So let's go back to writing expressions word problems. These are basically word problems that we don't have to solve. We just have to set them up as an expression. So the first one says, Angela shared a cab with her friends. When they arrived at their destination, they evenly divided the $J fare among the three of them. Angela also paid a $5 tip. So let's look at what's important in this problem. First of all, there's three of them total. And then Angela also paid a $5 tip. So let's think about this. If they evenly divided the fare, which is J dollars, so J dollars divided by however many people there were, which is three people, that's going to be how much per person they paid. So one person would pay this amount, but then Angela also paid a $5 tip. So we just need to factor in that $5 tip. So let's say hypothetically, the cab fare was $21. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and 7 plus 5 would equal 12. That's how much Angela would have paid if it had been a total of $21 for the cab fare. So you can just plug it in and just make sure that it works, which in this case it does. So our expression here, it would be J divided by 3 plus 5. Let's try the next one. 4 friends evenly divided up an N-slice pizza. One of the friends, Harris, ate one fewer slice than he received. How many slices of pizza did Harris eat? Well, now we have 4 people dividing an N-slice pizza. So you have N total slices split up among 4 people, and then Harris ate one fewer. Okay, let's say the pizza has 16 slices. 16 divided by 4 means that everybody ate 4 pieces, and then minus the 1 means Harris would have eaten 3 pieces. So as you can see, hypothetically plugging in a number, it works. Next one, there were 32 volunteers to donate blood. Unfortunately, N of the volunteers did not meet the health requirements, so they couldn't donate. The rest of the volunteers donated 470 milliliters each. How many milliliters of blood did the volunteers donate? This one's a little bit tricky because they're telling you that you're starting with 32 volunteers, but then N of them did not meet the health requirements. So if those N volunteers were taken away, we have to take the 32 and subtract the N that was taken away. So this is how many people actually donated, and they're saying the rest of the volunteers, which is 32 minus N, then donated 470 milliliters each. So this one ends up becoming a distribution expression because the original amount that you started with was altered, and then that new number is the one that donated the 470 milliliters. So there is distribution involved in this problem. Let's try another one. Jack had 3 bags of golf balls with B balls in each bag. Then his friend gave him 6 more golf balls. How many golf balls does Jack have now? Well, he's got 3 bags with B numbers of balls in them, so that would be 3 times B. And then his friend gave him 6 more. Well, think about it. If there's 10 balls in each bag, that would mean 30 total balls plus the 6. So hypothetically, it works if you try plugging in just a hypothetical number. Okay, Steve had 48 chocolates, but decided to give 8 chocolates to each of his F coworkers. So it says, how many chocolates does Steve have left? So what's important to know is he's giving 8 chocolates to each of his F coworkers. That would be 8. That would be 8 times F. And he started with 48, but he's giving those away or taking them away. So your final expression would be 48 minus 8F. Okay, moving right along to two-step equations. So let's first talk about how we solve a two-step equation. We've already gone through solving one-step equations in the first 2 units of the school year. Now we're going to solve two-step equations. So first thing that's important to know is that we are trying to isolate the variable. And what do we mean by that? Well, isolate means we're trying to get it by itself. So we're trying to get whatever the variable is in the equation by itself. In order to do that, we have to use the inverse operation, which is the opposite operation on both sides of an equation. Whatever you do to one side, you always have to do to the other. So let's take a look at an example. Your first step is to eliminate the constant. Now we've gone over all of our vocabulary in the previous units. We have coefficients, constants, and variables. So my constant in this problem is my 4. Notice that it's addition happening with that 4. So in order to get rid of it, I need to subtract it. And whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So that's going to leave me with 3x equals 12. And now to get my x by itself, I have to get rid of my coefficient. So my next step is always going to involve multiplication or division. In this case, since it's multiplication happening, I want to do the opposite, which is division. 3 divided by 3 is 1, which cancels out. And that means that x is going to equal 4. Now, it does help to plug it back in to see if it works. 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 plus 4 is 16. So it does work. All right, we're going to do a bunch of these problems together just because two-step equations is a new concept for you. So I want to make sure you have plenty of examples to look at. So my first step is eliminate my constant. So I'm going to subtract 4, and whatever I do on one side, I have to do to the other. So that leaves me with 8n equals 20. And then my next step is to divide through by 8. And that's going to leave me with, you always want to make sure you simplify. 20 divided by 4 is 5, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So it would be n equals 5 over 2, or n equals 2.5. Either of those would be correct. Okay, here notice it's subtraction. So to get rid of my constant, I'm going to be adding. So I've got 108 plus 112. Which gives me 220. We still have 2t on the right side, and now to get rid of my 2, I'm going to divide through by 2, and that's going to leave me with a solution of 110 equals t. Moving on to the one furthest to the right, my constant is 3. It's subtraction, so we're going to add. That leaves me with 5n on the left, and negative 2 plus 3 is a positive 1. And my last step is to divide through by 5, and that's going to leave me with n equals 1/5. Okay, let's move on to a couple of other problems. Same concept, you want to eliminate your constant first. So the first thing I'm going to do here, since it's plus 4, we're going to subtract 4. So that leaves me with x over 3 equals 20 minus 4 is 16. We have division here, and the opposite of that would be multiplication. So watch how I show it. You should be showing your steps exactly the same way as I am. Notice that my 3's are on a diagonal. It's almost like doing 3 over 1. So my 3's are going to cancel out to equal 1, leaving me with 1x over 1, or just x by itself. And 16 times 3 gives me 48. My next problem, my constant is 9. It's subtraction, so we're going to do the opposite, which is addition. That's going to cancel, leaving us with w over 7 equals 4 plus 9 is 13. And then my last step is to multiply through by 7. That's going to cancel out. And then if you need to, off to the side, you can just do your multiplication step. That's 21. So that's going to leave us with an answer of w equals 91. Okay, last one, my constant is 5. So to eliminate my constant, since it's a positive 5, we are going to subtract it. Notice that I have a decimal over here, so please make sure you line your decimals up. That leaves me with t over 5 equals 5.5 minus 5 is 0.5. And then my last step, since this is division, we want to multiply. That's going to cancel out. And that leaves us with t equals 0.5 times 5. Do the multiplication off to the side. And I've got one number to the right of my decimal, which means we're going to scoop in one place from the right. And that leaves us with t equals 2.5. Okay, let's try a few more of these. Okay, so let's try the next one. 5x minus 8 equals 34. So since this is subtraction, we are going to add 8 on both sides. That cancels out, leaving me with 5x equals 42. And then my last step, since that's multiplication, we're going to divide. Leaves me with x equals 42 over 5. My suggestion is don't convert this to a mixed number. Just leave it as a simplified improper fraction. Okay, here my constant is 12. Since it's subtraction, we're going to add it. That leaves me with negative 6x equals negative 24 plus 12. Different signs, so we subtract. And I have more negatives than positives. And then to get rid of my negative 6, we're going to simply just divide. I've got a negative divided by a negative, leaving me with a positive 2. Notice that I have a fractional coefficient here. So when you have a fraction as a coefficient, in order to eliminate it, you need to multiply both sides by the reciprocal to eliminate it. So I'm going to have you watch what I do here. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of our constant, which is 7. In order to do that, I have to subtract it. That leaves me with 2/3 x equals 3. And now in order to eliminate my fraction, I want to just multiply through by the reciprocal. Now notice when I multiply by the reciprocal, and we should all remember your reciprocal is just your fraction flipped, I have the same number on the diagonals, which means they all cancel out. The whole goal is to get rid of the number with the variable. So that's what we're doing when we multiply through by the reciprocal. And that's going to leave me with x equals, well, 3 times 3 is 9, and 1 times 2 is 2. So our final answer here would be x equals 9 over 2. Okay, here we've got some distribution. So let's go ahead and distribute. So that's going to leave me with 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. And then off to the side, if you need to do the operation, you can. That's going to leave me with, if I cross simplify, 3 over 1, or just 3. Now we need to subtract 3 on both sides. That leaves me with 1/3 x. 21 minus 3 equals 18. And then my last step is to just multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 3 over 1. What we do on one side, we do to the other. And then 18 times 3 is going to give us our final answer of x equals 54. Okay, again, we've got some distribution here. Negative 4 times w is negative 4w. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And now we'd have a basic two-step equation. I'm going to add 4 on both sides. That leaves me with negative 4w equals negative 20. Negative 24 plus 4 is negative 20. And then my last step is to divide through by negative 4, leaving me with a positive 5. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. I'm going to show you one other way that you can do this. Let's do this in green. I'm going to rewrite our problem. You might see this problem done this way when we get to the find the mistake skill. You can eliminate this number in front of your parentheses in the very beginning of the problem. We know that distribution is multiplication, so I can actually eliminate my negative 4 right away by doing the opposite, which is division. And then again, like we've been saying, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So that's going to leave me with w plus 1 equals, well, negative 24 divided by negative 4 is positive 6. And then now we have a one-step equation. I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides, and that's going to leave me with w equals 5. So that's two different ways that you can do that problem. Okay, here we go. We've got distribution. I'm going to do it both ways again. So that's going to leave me with 42 equals negative 7z plus 21 because I have a negative times a negative here. So we're going to subtract 21 on both sides. That's going to leave me with 21 equals negative 7z. And then we're going to divide through by negative 7. It's going to cancel on the right. And that leaves us with z equals negative 3. Let's try it the other way. I'll rewrite it. 42 equals negative 7 times the quantity of z minus 3. So I'm going to eliminate my negative 7 right away. What we do to one side, we do to the other. That leaves me with a negative 6 equals z minus 3. And then when I add 3 on both sides, I'm still going to get the same answer, which is negative 3. So 2 different ways that you could do that one. All right, let's try one that's a little bit longer. So I'm actually going to distribute not just the 4, I'm going to distribute the negative 4 because I like taking the sign that's with it. So I'm going to leave 3 where it is in the front. I've got a negative 4 times a negative 3f, which is a positive 12f. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 equals negative 29. I have a positive 3 and a negative 8. So that leaves me with 12f. A positive 3 and a negative 8 gives me negative 5 equals negative 29. And then I'm going to add 5 on both sides. 12f equals negative 29 plus 5 is going to leave me with negative 24. And then to get rid of my 12, I'm going to divide both sides by 12. And that leaves me with f equals negative 2. Okay, let's move into the last skill, which is the same thing, equations, but now we're going to have some decimals and fractions. Okay, so I'm going to actually rewrite this problem over here so it gives us a little bit more room to work. So my constant here is 2/7. It's subtraction, so in order to get rid of it, we want to add it. Negative 2/7 and positive 2/7 cancels out. And whatever we do on one side, we do to the other. So that leaves me with 5/7 equals h over 14. And then to get rid of my 14, since this is division, we're just going to multiply by 14. What we do on one side, we do to the other. I can actually cross simplify my 7 and my 14. So that's going to leave me with a final answer of h equals, I'm left with 2 times 5, which is 10. Okay, again, let me just copy this down. 5/4 equals negative 4c plus 1/4. So our first step is to subtract 1/4. What we do to one side, we do to the other. 5/4 minus 1/4 is 4/4, which equals 1 whole. And then to get c by itself, we're simply just dividing through by negative 4. And 1 over negative 4 means my final answer is negative 1/4. Okay, so here we have distribution. I'm going to go ahead and distribute rather than factoring out the 3 in the beginning. We're going to distribute it. So that's going to leave me with 3q plus 3 times 4 is 12. So that's going to leave me with 12 over 3, which if you think about it, what is 12 divided by 3? Well, it's 4. So I'm just going to replace that with a whole number to make it easier. And now I'm just solving it like a 2-step equation. Minus 4 on both sides. That leaves me with 3q equals negative 2. And then we're going to divide through by 3, leaving me with q equals negative 2/3. Okay, let's try one last one together. N over 5 plus 0.6 equals 2. My constant is 0.6, so we're going to subtract that on both sides. So I'm going to add a decimal there. We have to do a little bit of borrowing. That's going to leave me with a positive 1.4. So we have n over 5 equals 1.4. Well, to get rid of my 5, since this is division, we are going to multiply. What we do to one side, we do to the other, and then just off to the side, I'm going to set up my multiplication problem. Scoop my decimal in one place. So that means n is going to equal 7. That does it for those 3 skills. The correlating note-taking packet pages are pages 14 through page 19, just on the top of page 19. And again, if you'd like to watch additional examples, you can watch the videos in Khan Academy. Have a great day, everyone.